This video is about telling a story, about a technique that might help you when it comes to looking at the camera or looking at an audience if you're in a theater or wherever you might be sharing a story with people. This might be able to help you. This video is also about shooting wide open, meaning a fast aperture, and how that has its advantages and disadvantages. And this video is also kind of sort of about New York City!
And subject to search by the...
Well, that, exactly. Yep.
337 train to Poughkeepsie Filling Station will be next. Poughkeepsie will be next.
Harlem, 125th Street.
You know, a long time ago I had a director who told me to stop giving away my secrets, meaning my performing secrets, because I had a really unique style of performing as a solo theater artist, and I did performance workshops. And actually another actor one time came to see a reading that I did, which is basically a performance because I don't read from the book, I memorize everything. But anyway, he said to me, you should teach your technique, this actor. He said, you should share your technique like Meisner and stuff like that. Like, you should teach it. And it never occurred to me, like, I have a technique. Like, I'm just being myself, I'm just being honest. I'm just being genuine to how I am and how I perform and how I communicate. And so I don't really look at it like that because, I look at storytelling, performance, whatever you want to call it, I look at it as an exchange, a sharing, an offering, and I don't think that's something to keep to yourself, because I actually think that that is probably the most important thing that we could do with one another as human beings is communicate, share, have a conversation, have dialogue. I mean, how else can we come together? How else can we solve our differences? How else can we live together if we're not communicating? How do we do that? And so that's the same thing, whether you're an actor in a film or on the theater or whatever, like if you're not communicating, if you're not being clear, if the audience doesn't understand what's going on, if it's just all about the energy and all that, then it's not going to accomplish anything. You know what I mean? You're not going to get your story across. You're not going to move people. You might impress them for like 5 minutes or something like that, but you need to create something that people can relate to, that people can identify with, that they see themselves in your story in some kind of way. It doesn't have to be literal. It doesn't have to be, just exactly them, but it has to be something that resonates with them and makes them feel like they're a part of this, like that I'm talking about them. And I've often heard that from people in the audience. They say, I felt like you were talking to me, or I felt like you were talking about my family or my life or something like that, when I wasn't. But that's like mission accomplished, And so somebody asked me the other day to share how I prepare my stories, how I talk to the camera on YouTube. It's like, I don't look at it that way, So I wanted to make this video for Luis, who asked me to do this, because I don't generally do stuff like this, on YouTube, like answer. I don't really get that many comments, so since somebody specifically asked me, I'm going to do this, So I have a very unique way of telling stories, and I was actually thinking about this the other day. I was in New York City. I had an appointment with my kinesiologist. I'm kind of that alternative medicine person, so that's my doctor. And so I was walking all over the city. I was everywhere, and I was shooting, and with my camera. And don't make any New York City jokes about that. I was shooting with my camera, video. So I had just watched a video by Jevin Dovey. Do you know him? He's like an amazing YouTuber, one of my favorites. Somebody who's outdoors most of the time. Somebody who does like real meaningful work too. Like he shares stuff that he does in real documentaries. He'll go do, a story about somebody in Africa or Malaysia or something. Like, I'm not sure where exactly, but he's done some really, really important work. He uses his art the way I think art is supposed to be used. So anyway, he did a video the other day, and he was talking about he likes to shoot wide open all the time. Now, for those who don't know what that means the fastest aperture. Like, he likes a blurry background, put it that way, or he likes a small depth of field. He doesn't want a deep depth of field. He wants to really, show his subject and, focus on something specific, and he shoots everything wide open. He was talking about a documentary that he had just done, and he shot the whole thing wide open, and I thought to myself, like, that's crazy talk. Like, I don't understand that, because to me, choosing your aperture is like the most creative part of making film, making video, making a movie. I guess equally as important as, creating your frame, your composition, what's in the frame, how do you, light it, how do you create your depth of field, and how do you create, the blurry background, like what do you want to focus on? So obviously sometimes you're going to choose an aperture that's really slow because you want to show everything, And I think most movies are shot that way, to be honest with you. But then there are the times where you want something really intimate and you just want the attention to be on that moment, that character, what they're saying. And so then you might shoot wide open. And so when I was in the city the other day, when I left my apartment, I got on a train to go to the city because I don't live there anymore. I moved, I'm not far away, but I'm just a train ride away. But when I was on the train, I was thinking to myself, I'm going to challenge myself to do what Jevin Dovey said. I'm going to shoot wide open all day, And what I found out is that shooting wide open, and that's not what this video is about, but shooting wide open will make you a better filmmaker, definitely. It'll teach you. Now, I'm never going to shoot everything wide open because I don't believe in that. But that exercise the other day definitely helped me to, I think, become more aware of my shooting, because when you shoot wide open and you only have a sliver of focus, like only a sliver of a little area that's going to be in focus, you have to be really meticulous with what you're focusing on, that, you know, what's the most important thing in the frame. And I'm somebody who believes, like, you can't just shoot a beautiful frame. Like, there has to be something in your composition that you're focused on, you know. Something is the important part of the story in that moment, you know. Unless the moment is that somebody's completely lost, or everything is lost and there's chaos and there's nothing, you know, it's just a mishmash of chaos. There's got to be something in focus. You know, you have to choose it. And, you know, you have the whole frame. You know, you have the corners in the middle and the midsection stuff between the corners in the middle. And you could focus anywhere, especially when you're shooting wide open. Focus on something, everything else is out of focus, you know. Like when you zone focus, you know, and if you don't know what that is, I'm not going to get into it here, but that's something that you do with manual lenses. And basically what you do is you choose an aperture and then you use those numbers on your frame to, you know, you use infinity focus to set up a situation where everything past a certain point is totally sharp. You know, like everything beyond 8 feet or beyond 12 feet or beyond 15 feet or beyond 3 feet, everything beyond that point is sharp. And so that's kind of cool for like street photography and stuff like that. But I don't think that's great for, you know, I don't think that's great to have that throughout your entire story. I don't think that helps tell a story. I think it might, you know, allow you to just shoot beautiful frames and get beautiful colors and, you know, choosing, you know, different scenarios and different shots that you think are interesting and you want everything in focus. That's cool. Or everything before that point out of focus is fine. But personally, I'm always focusing on something. And so anyway, I shot everything wide open the other day. And it also occurred to me that, you know, when I got this comment from Luis, I thought to myself, you know, my performance thing, my storytelling, you know, the way I tell stories here too, is that I stay wide open. You know, I stay open to, you know, like when I'm in performance, say on either acting in a film or in a theater, I'm very, very open to the energy around me, to what's going on, you know. I'm a solo theater artist, so most of my work in the theater is just my interaction with an audience, you know, or the space. You know, like I consider every place that I perform a sacred performance space. And especially if I have an audience, it's really sacred. That's like something very, very magical for me. And I'm very sensitive to the energy of that. And, you know, the energy could be dictated by something that's happening in the world. Like imagine doing a play right after 9/11, you know, or right after, you know, some kind of crazy news, like something just happened, you know, or, you know, imagine if like, you know, the Yankees won the World Series and you got to do a show that day and people are just thinking about that. And so there's an energy that you have to kind of take control of to engage people and to, you know, bring them into your world because they're thinking about other things. And so I'm very sensitive about that. So here's my tips for whatever it's worth. First of all, I believe that you have to first create a story. Like you have to know what you're going to do. You can't just like, okay, let me put it this way. Personally, I'll use freestyle rappers as a metaphor for this. They are geniuses as far as I'm concerned, like off the hook. I can't do that. You know, like the intellectual power that a freestyle rapper has is so deep. It's so incredible. It's like a great jazz musician who has an unlimited vocabulary of patterns that they play on a guitar or piano or saxophone or whatever. Like this unbelievable, gigantic, ginormous vocabulary that they can use at the drop of a hat and that they could also play around with and like slightly alter because they have mastered it so well. That's what freestyle rappers can do with language, you know? Like, I don't do that. So my storytelling, and this is me, this has nothing to do with anybody else, I'm just giving you my way of doing things. My storytelling is that I have to create a story first. I have to write the story. And I spend a lot of time writing, you know? I think it's really important to do that. And then, once I have crafted the story, I memorize it. Because I know a lot of people are good at reading from the page, but for me that's like kryptonite. Like I can't connect with an audience reading. It just feels like a gigantic iron fence between me and the audience. Like I have to memorize the work. And so, you know, and this goes for talking to a camera too. So I'm going to get to that in a second, but I memorize the work because I think it's really important and meaningful to get the words in your body so that you are sharing from the inside out and not from the outside in, not reading from the page, not reading from a script or whatever. Like, you have put these words in your body and they have become a part of you like another organ. You know, it's like your heart and your liver and your kidneys and your spleen, and this story is now living in your body. And now you're sharing it with people from the inside out, like you're sharing your heart. Right? It's no different than any of your other organs, your brain, your heart, everything. You're sharing it. And you've mastered it. And it's not enough to just memorize it, right? You have to connect with it too, you know? Even though you wrote the story, it doesn't mean that you really, really know that story until you put it in your body, because then you're experiencing the story with the world around you. And it's different, you know, than reading. You know, like, think about it. You know, you're reading, you're looking at the page, things are going on around you, and you have no idea what's happening around you. You have no idea who's looking at you in the audience, even though it's hard to see beyond the lights, but you have no idea the energy that's coming at you. You are locked into reading, and that stops you from a lot. But when you have it in your body, you're open. And that's so much more vulnerable. And a lot of people don't like to be vulnerable. In order to share stories well, I believe that you have to be willing to be vulnerable and intimate. You have to be wide open to that. And so that's the next step, to memorize it. But then the thing is, anybody can memorize a script. Anybody. I mean, a monkey can memorize a script. But after you memorize it, you have to assimilate it into your body, into your sensibility, into your energy, into who you are. And now you're going to interpret it based on your life experiences, right? You don't even have to really think about this. Once you memorize it, that's what's going to happen naturally. You know, who you are is going to come through. You know, and at the end of the day, even if you're playing a different character, even if you're not playing yourself, even if you are playing yourself, you're going to interpret something based on where you've been and who you know and what you've done and what you want and what you need. You know, all of that is going to come through because it's in your body. You're not reading it, you know. That's static, but when it's in your body, it's dynamic. And then you could play with it, you know, because it's a part of you. You know, like when you're reading a script, you can't really play with it. The words are there, and as you read them, they go by, and the words are gone, and there are words coming. But, you know, when it's in your body, you know what left. You know what has been behind you, and you know where you're going. And so you can build, and you can finesse it, you know what I mean? And, obviously, you feel so much more comfortable than, you know, like reading a teleprompter or something like that. You feel like when you command it, like anything could happen, and you're not going to lose your story. You know, the beginning, the middle, and the end, the conflict and the resolution, the exposition, the denouement, like all of it. Nothing can mess you up because you have it, like, you know, just like you're telling a story. And the thing is, the important part about storytelling is once you have mastered it like that, every time you share it, whether it's one time or a million times, like in my case, I did 8 shows a week for 6 months once of a play. 8 shows a week. The exact same words every single time because I don't ad-lib. I learn the script and that's it. Every single night. Same words, right? But those words are going to be a little bit different depending upon, like I said before, the energy and things like that. But what if something happens? What if somebody in the theater has a heart attack? You know, what if a light falls? What if all of a sudden a car alarm goes off in the back of the theater? And it stays on for the whole show. Is that going to mess you up? What if people are getting up and going to the bathroom? You know, I mean, that's a bad sign too because, well, if people go to the bathroom, whatever, but if people are getting up and down and talking, what if people are talking on their cell phones? Is this going to like take you off your thing and you're going to lose your words? Not if you have it mastered. Like when I'm in the theater or when I'm doing a movie, nothing can mess up my words, nothing. Like as a matter of fact, if something happens, I'll use that and include it as part of the story. And so, in my opinion, you must memorize it, you must master it, you must become a part of what you're saying. And then, with regards to YouTube and talking to a camera or filming yourself in a movie or whatever, which I just finished doing, you know, I don't talk to the camera, you know? And I don't mean that in a literal sense. Like, of course, sometimes I'll use a technique where if I'm talking to another character that I'm creating, I'll look off, you know, and I'll be like this, you know, my eyes are over here and I'm fixated on somebody and I actually see that person. And it's the same thing with the camera. I don't see a camera. I don't see the Lumix words on my camera. I don't see anything. What I do is I picture people and usually a specific person. And something that I do, which, maybe this will help you. Every day that I rehearse, and I rehearse every day of my life, that's something that's part of my creative practice. I'm rehearsing something. If I'm working on a play, I'm rehearsing that. If I'm working on a film, I'm rehearsing that. Otherwise, I'm working on stuff and creating new work, and I'm rehearsing that. And every single day of my life, I give my creative practice to somebody I know. Somebody who was important to me in my life, who, in a sense, is now holding me accountable to do the work that I'm doing. So it ain't all about me. And so when I look at the camera, I have somebody in mind, Let's say I want to tell the story to my grandmother. That's whose face I see. I'm looking right into my grandmother's eyes, I see her expression. I see how she's responding to me. I see how she's sitting. I see how her hair looks and her, her lipstick and her shirt, and I see my grandmother, all the lines on her face, whoever I choose, that's who I'm seeing. If I'm talking to a character, I see that character. I see what they look like. And also, by the way, I do character study. Now, obviously, I don't have to do much character study if it's my grandmother or my mother or friends or whatever. But, if it's some character that I've created, I make sure that I take notes and I understand who this character is, who I created. Meaning, what kind of food do they like? What kind of movies do they go to? What kind of music do they listen to? What do they, what do they look like? And how tall are they? What color hair do they have? Like, I do a real character study. Who is this person? Are they conservative? Are they liberal? Stuff like that. So then when I talk to them, I have a real foundation for the conversation. Like when you know where somebody's coming from or who they are or whatever, that's how you talk to them, right? You know what I'm talking about. Like there are certain things, certain places you're not going to go with certain people. And so, again, you have to stay wide open to all of this stuff. You have to be wide open to the entire experience and kind of forget that you're talking to a camera, And also, you have to try to tell stories, whether it's just about reviewing a lens or telling a story about racism or gentrification or war or love or, somebody's daughter or your first child or whatever. You have to tell a story that really means something to you, if you're in this, filmmaking world and YouTube, you're passionate about this gear, right? So tell the story about a camera or a lens or lights or microphones or whatever, and tell it like this is equipment that you need to tell your story. This is stuff that is absolutely necessary. You must tell this story. Don't tell stories that you don't feel like you have to tell, because it's going to come off that way. It's going to be boring. Only tell stories that you must tell. And don't talk about stuff that you don't know. Even if you create a fictional story, know that story. I made myself a promise a long time ago that I would never get on stage or never get in front of a camera unless I felt like I absolutely needed to tell that story, which, as an actor is kind of stupid because it's good to work, and sometimes you should do jobs that you don't feel that way about and just be an actor, but that's just how I am. That's how I've always been. I'm not really that kind of an actor, I need to feel like I'm practically going to die if I don't share this story. And I think that's a good way to go, actually, especially if you're on YouTube. Not to say that if you don't, talk about this lens, you're going to die, but have that kind of passion for it. You know what I mean? Understand that you're helping people, that you're providing people with some information that is going to guide them to be better at what they do. You're providing, great value to people that they don't have. And that's what YouTube is all about, right? I mean, and I'm not even a big YouTuber, But I understand story, and I understand that you have to tell stories that you must tell, that you need to tell, that is going to be important to people, because it's so important to you. And if you come with that kind of energy, it's going to help, So forget about the camera. You're not looking at the camera. You're looking at your mom, your girlfriend, your wife, your husband, your significant other, your dog, whatever. I used to rehearse to my dog. And he would just sit there and look at me, He would do that dog thing. And I just would look in those eyes, And this is important, too, because, memorize your stuff. Now, if you memorize it in your apartment or in your house or something like that, go outside and rehearse, too, because I'm telling you, the minute you get outside and there's traffic around and people walking around and construction and all this stuff, especially if you live in a place like New York City, where I've lived most of my life, it's going to mess you up. Like, you're going to lose all your words. Like, memorize your stuff, master your story in as many situations as you can, in as many different places as you can, because I'm telling you, then you will master it. You will have it, and you will never mess it up, ever. So, I don't know. You know, while I was walking around New York City the other day, I was thinking about this, you know, like, you know, being wide open to everything that was going on around me. And, you know, I always think, like, every time I get on the subway, for my whole life I felt like this, you know. I would get on the subway and I'd look around at all these people and I would think, damn, there are so many stories in this train. Like, you have no idea what people have been through today, what they're going through, you know. Somebody might have just had a baby, you know, like maybe somebody's wife just had a baby, you know, or maybe somebody just found out that they have cancer, you know. Maybe somebody's going to lose their apartment. Maybe somebody just got a raise, you know. Maybe somebody just found their biological mother. You know, you have no idea what's going on. Maybe somebody has AIDS. Maybe somebody's sick. Maybe somebody just got cured of a horrible disease, you know. Maybe somebody just learned something. They got accepted to a school that they really wanted to go to. Like, you have no idea what these people are going through in this train, on the street. I saw these two bands, you know, in the subway the other day. They were incredible. Like, they were just off the charts, gifted. You know what I mean? And I just thought to myself, what's the story with these guys? You know, like, they're so talented, but they're playing in the subway. And I know that they had to, like, submit to get permission to play there, to be a part of this program. And, you know, I know every once in a while people like Bono or, you know, show up in the subway and sing, but these were not that. These were guys who play in the subway, and that's how they earn a living, probably. Except that they are gifted like anybody making millions of dollars. Like, they should have been playing in stadiums. That's how talented they were. And I was just thinking about their story, you know. I was thinking about the story of, you know, people just walking on the streets and all the stuff around me. And I'm kind of like an empath, you know, and I take it all in. And I was just feeling all the stories. And I was rehearsing something that I'm working on. Even though I just finished a film, I've already got 3 scripts. And so I was rehearsing, you know, memorizing words while I was walking downtown around all these people. Because that helps. But also I could feel all the stories. You know, being in a place like New York City is amazing for that. Being around the architecture, the stories that live in the walls, these buildings, these old, unbelievably, like they're like museums. The stories that, if they could, you know, if the walls could talk, as they say, like, you know, I think about stuff like that all the time. And so if you think about that, you're going to be inspired to share stories. Like, when you think about the possibilities of everything around you, you just get excited about it, and it's easy to share that. So, you know, that's how I look at storytelling, and that's kind of like my technique, you know. That's the way I do things, and that's the way I believe is the best way for me. And if it helps you, there you go. Knock yourself out. If you have ever seen me do a play that's 2.5 hours long, think about what it takes. Think about my story, what it takes to memorize like 260 pages, 2.5 hours of words. That's a lot to memorize. It takes a long time, a lot of commitment, dedication, desire to share. Like, the reason I'm able to do that is because I know on the other side of that, I get to go into a theater and share it with people and be around all these people and get all these hugs afterwards, and it's so awesome. Or I get to make a movie, you know, and then I get to share that movie. Like, I got it, and I could just, you know, share it in festivals and hopefully streaming services and just send it to my friends. And storytelling is the greatest gift. You know, my grandmother, my father, my mother, they were great. They were the best storytellers I've ever known. And I know that I am this because of that, because of them. And to me, being in performance is like my lifeblood. Like I love it so much. I love to perform. I love to talk to the camera because I don't even see the camera, even though I love this Panasonic S5. And right now I'm shooting wide open using the Minolta 28mm f2.8 just because it was consistent with this video. So I'm sorry, I just looked at the time because one thing about the Panasonic S5, 30-minute limit for 4K, and I'm shooting this in Cinema 4K. So I'm going to end here and tell you, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you got something out of it. And thank you, Luis, for asking me to do this because I'm so passionate about it, and I really enjoy talking about this. And I've talked about, one thing I will say, I do a lot of YouTube videos off the top of my head. And I do think that if you have the background that I have of storytelling, you're more apt to be able to talk about things off the top of your head too. Like I'm just telling a story here. And so one other, and I'll end the video with this, the most important thing about storytelling is when you tell a story, it should sound like the first time you have ever told that story. Like we're all experiencing this for the first time that it's happening ever. And so ad-libbing obviously is that literally, but when you memorize stuff, like if you do a play every day for years, think about Broadway shows, every single performance needs to be like it happened right then and there, the first time ever. So everybody's like, wow, we're getting to experience this for the first time. That's what your goal should be every single time you get in front of this camera and talk on YouTube, or if you do a play, or if you do a film, or whatever. That's the goal. Make it seem like it's the first time you ever did it, whether you're ad-libbing, whether you're scripted, or whatever. And that's it. I'm going to end now. So thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. Please hit the like button. That helps the channel. I'm really beginning to grow. And I so appreciate that. Thank you so much. So yeah, that's it. I'm done. I hope that was good. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you get something out of it. All right, go get to work. Do something. Make art. Make a contribution. Give people of your heart.